Hi there, and welcome everybody who's watching, tuning in live for the Wednesday warm-up edition of the This Is Ibrox podcast. As always, I have two fantastic guests on with me. Somebody who I've been looking forward to being back on the podcast for a long, long time. It's really good to be back on with you, Andrew. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. It's been a while. It's been a while, Kyle. Especially since you and I were together. It's always good the evening after. It was a positive result. Let's face it, it was a positive result. Usual Rangers took the long road to get there, but we'll get into that. But it's always good to come on the night after something like that.
That's it. And just as an aside, I'll always remember that podcast pre-Seville, like the day before it, where it was you and I that was on it. That was one of the best podcasts I've ever been on. So there you go. Setting the standards there, Ross. But how are you? It's good to have you back on and be on a podcast with yourself. You just listen and let the listeners in behind the scenes. You described this as a Scott Wright-like substitution. I think you were doing yourself a bit of a disservice there.
Definitely. A wee bit of criticism, I think, for the sub, but, delivers in big moments. Scott Wright has in that Scottish Cup final, hasn't he? So it's definitely a Scott Wright substitution. No, I think I don't think I could be matched in your assessment of Andy there, and then I'm coming in. I'm just a sideshow, I think, tonight. But no, I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be back on.
That's it. We'll grow those locks out and hopefully you'll put in a Cantwell-like performance tonight. There we go. But look, as always, there's loads to talk about. We've got the game against Servette, where Rangers managed to get to the next stage of Champions League qualification in Switzerland and Geneva with a 1-1 draw. We'll talk all about that first half. We'll talk what the guys think changed in the second half. We'll touch on the goals. There's lots of individual performances that I think we're all keen to get talking about. Some good, some not so good from last night, as it seems to already be the running theme of this season. We all know we've got the next leg against PSV Eindhoven, which is going to be another tasty tie. We'll get the guys' thoughts on that. Obviously, a reunion with Malik Tillman on the cards, who it really breaks my heart to say it. Rangers have been linked with England youth international Ronnie Edwards from Peterborough, and the game against Morton in the Scottish League Cup and the rare 12:30 kickoff at Ibrox on Saturday. Look, I'll start with you first, Andy. Everybody who's regular viewer of the Wednesday warm-up, and if you're not, everybody knows that I like to do a wee on this day just for something different. So, Andy, I'll come to you first. On this day, Rangers defeated Aberdeen 3-2 away in Pittodrie. You know I always love talking about defeating Aberdeen in this podcast. But the scorers were Ronald de Boer, Michael Moles and Mikel Arteta. I think there was a wee off the pitch incident with Fernando Rickson, but we'll maybe go over that one. But what was your memories of this game? Rangers just coming off of a treble winning season the season before.
I'll be honest with you, Kyle. I can't really remember the game. I think I was on holiday. I do remember. I do remember the goals. I had a wee kind of research here when you tell me this was going to be mine. I'm with you. Kyle, there's nothing better than beating Aberdeen at Pittodrie. It's fantastic. I've been up there a couple of times with Rangers. Not always made it home on the same day. There was once it was actually a 3-day. Ended up as a 3-day, but I was in my early 20s. I was single, so it was acceptable to an extent. When it comes to this game, you've got 3 goal scorers there: De Boer, Arteta, and Michael Moles. I mean, you could wax lyrical for hours about the 3 of them. Looking back at YouTube, when you told me this was going to be my on the day, Michael Ball. I love Michael Ball. I sit in the enclosure at Ibrox, as you know, and so you can see the left backs and all their glory in the first half. It's always fantastic. I always liked Michael Ball, and what a dead ball he hit right off the crossbar. Ronald de Boer first to react, header, and then the next 2 goals it was okay. Arteta scored the first one, then Moles, but they both involved the Michael Moles turn, synonymous with Michael Moles. Fantastic player. You could sit here all night and wax lyrical about Michael Moles and Mikel Arteta and Ronald de Boer. You really, really could. You're right. There was a bit of a on the pitch incident with Fernando Rickson, but the less said about that, the better, I think. Regarding the gentleman involved. So, no, it's not one I distinctly remember. I don't think I was in the country. I think I probably watched it on the TV, but always good to get one over Aberdeen at Pittodrie, as you well know, Kyle.
Yeah, that's it exactly. As long as you weren't watching that one from a hot tub somewhere, like you said on that. Now this is going back a wee bit on the.
That was Hibs when I was in Dominican Republic.
That's the one.
I was smashed,
You were smashed and Hibs got smashed, so it was all. Right, Ross, you've got a relatively recent one there for your on this day, and it's something that's really relevant and something that we'll certainly come back to talk about a wee bit later on in the podcast. But Rangers drew 2-2 with PS Eindhoven at Ibrox, with Antonio Cholak scoring first goal for Rangers, and then a bit of a howler from their goalkeeper, a 40-yard free kick from Tom Lawrence. What was your memories of this game?
Well, I'm glad I got this one because my memory is shocking. So I'm glad I was asked this one. Yeah, I remember that night at Ibrox being a really tight game. I think PSV really showed their level that night, and we had to match it, to be honest with you. It was one of those kind of back and forth kind of games. I think we were quite lucky that night to get out with 2-2, if I remember. PSV were really good in the first half. I also remember that Antonio Cholak goal being a really, really fantastic goal. I think it's good play between James Tavernier and Stephen Davis. It's a typical Stephen Davis kind of splitting pass, gets Tavernier in, cuts the ball back, and it's a really good finish from Antonio Cholak. And that's something we've seen over the season that he was here with us. He did have that in his locker. So, yeah, a really good night at Ibrox. Actually, the atmosphere was really good that night. I think the fans were right up for it and knew they were playing against a really good team. Mm-hmm. And, kept the tie alive. And that's really what you want in that stage of the playoff rounds for the Champions League. We might see something similar this coming Tuesday where Rangers are trying to keep the tie alive to go over to the Netherlands. So, yeah, really good memories. Kyle came off the back of a great season before. So, in terms of Europe, so, yeah, really good one to remember for me.
Yeah, let's hope it's repeated this season again, but we'll find out in a few weeks, though, I suppose. I see there's a lot of comments already coming in about some of the new signings and how they'll get through this tie, but for me, I think that tie was a lot of muscle memory from our players, just because they were so used to just churning out results in Europe the season before. I think that's why we partly got over the line with that one, but I agree, it was a fantastic game, fantastic atmosphere, and one of the few games I normally finish my work quite late on a Tuesday evening. I think I arrived in my seat just as the Champions League music was finishing, which was extra sweet. But look, Andy, I'll come to you first. We'll begin by talking about last night's draw over in Geneva. Not vintage Rangers by any stretch of the imagination, but it's all about the result. Our very own JB was over there watching it live from the stands. So just a wee shout out to JB, and hope you're travelling home safely, and that your wallet didn't take too much of a dent in it. But I said Michael Beale was keen to point out post-match that any result away from home at any level in Europe is decent, but apart from the occasional foray into the opposition box in that first half, Andy, I thought we were pretty dire.
Yeah, that's putting it quite mildly. Dire. Started off okay. Must admit, started off okay. First 5-10 minutes, I thought we were okay. It was quite apparent early on, I thought, and Michael Beale referenced it in his post-match comments, we weren't high enough up the pitch. Now, there's somebody in the WhatsApp chat for us, I think it might be Gav, who's always shouting and bawling about bodies in the box. And that's a running theme in our WhatsApp group, and it's a running theme last night. Whenever we did venture up the park, I just thought we were short up there, if you know what I mean. It was probably the wrong system to start off with. There was no intensity, really. There was no penetration. Found it hard to get up the park with any kind of menace, if you like. Cantwell, I thought he was trying. We'll get into individual performances shortly, I'm sure. But the ability that boy's got to get out of a tight situation and find a pass is out of this world. Happened a couple of times in the first half. Wasn't enough. We'll get into Jack Butland, I'm quite sure, who kept us in the game 15 minutes in, or whatever it was, and it's very, very like Rangers to have reasonable pressure early on, like we did, and then go and concede a sloppy goal. That would be classed as, and then the sloppy goal obviously came and the end up. So no, to surmise, the first half was dire, absolutely dire. Second half picked up a wee bit. We'll get into that. I was expecting to come out the traps, get the game killed. Probably should have been killed the second 45 at Ibrox the previous week. Wasn't to be. So very disappointed with the first half performance, Kel. Yes.
Yeah, and Ross, just to pick up where Andy sort of left off on there, where do you think the sort of why was that first half so difficult for Rangers? I mean, basically what I'm trying to get at is, I know I've said it like a few times in pre-season, I felt we're too narrow. Did you feel that was part of the reason in the first half? Do you just think some of the players weren't adjusting to being in their first away game in Europe for Rangers? What was it?
Well, I agree with overall the kind of sentiment around the team being too narrow at times. I think we've seen that against Kilmarnock on the opening day of the season. I think we've seen it against Servette last week, especially in that second half where we're trying to rush things through the middle of the park and it was just breaking down completely. It wasn't what I felt the problem was first half last night. I thought defensively in the first half last night, we were a shambles. I mean, just not being able to deal with really, really simple tactics, really, from Servette. The whole idea from Servette was to be intense, get the ball forward as quickly as possible and play off second balls, and we just did not react to it one bit. There's a lot of individual errors in there as well. I think James Tavernier gave the ball away in the first 15, 20 minutes about 3 or 4 times in dangerous areas as well, ball running under his foot, passes going out of play. I just thought we were all over the place in that aspect when it comes to the back four. And if you're playing in Europe, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what team you're playing against. You need a solid base to go from. And if you're playing against teams of that quality, if you give them anything in terms of defensive leakages, essentially, they will capitalise on it. And we've seen that last night with Servette. I mean, we'll probably come on to the goal, so I won't touch on it too much. But it really is just down to poor defending, losing concentration, not being aware of who's around you. And really just dealing with the ball at its source. You know, it's a great finish, but you can deal with it a lot earlier on in that move. So, yeah, for me, I think the first half last night was just because we were so shaky defensively. You can't build forward if everyone behind you is having a nightmare. I think Nicholas Raskin and Todd Campbell tried their best. I think Cifuentes showed moments as well in that first half, but we just didn't have enough of a base to really go forward. And I did see some bright sparks from the forward players in the first half, but just not enough to capitalise on when everyone behind them was having an absolute nightmare. So, yeah, for me, it just came down to defensive problems in that first half last night, Kale.
Yeah, totally agree with what you've said there. There's a wee comment coming up here, Andy. I hate to be the one to ask you about this, but we've got to talk about it because it was a major moment in that first half. And it's King Rec here says the single biggest issue is the sitters. We won't keep missing them. Rec, I would be worried if we didn't create the chances. Yeah, I kind of agree with both of those sentiments, but I mean, that was a shocker last night, I've got to say. I mean, I've got every confidence that Danilo will go on to be a fantastic player for Rangers, but that was a real bad miss yesterday. And again, I don't know if it's just a case of him getting up to speed. Trying to put a positive spin on it, what a ball it was in from Cifuentes, by the way, to Craig Chinmay at the weekend there, because, or the Servette, the previous tie, I should say, because I think I said it was in no man's land, but it's that he put that ball right into the corridor of uncertainty. But Danilo's got to be scoring that, doesn't he, Andy?
It's got to go in, and you can fling as many cliches at the YouTube channel as you want. That it's good to be making these chances, and they will come. They've got to come. It's Rangers. We don't have time to let it come. We've already dropped 3 points at the start of the season because, well, okay, not so many missed chances wasn't the problem at Kilmarnock, and we'll not go back over that. But when these chances come away from home in Europe, they must hit the net. It's as simple as that. They must go in. You took the easy way out there and described the ball in by Cifuentes as brilliant. That's the only positive spin you can have on it. It was a fantastic ball, and I've got high hopes for him. I really have got high hopes for him. I found myself today debating the Danilo, Dessers, Lammers, the chances. Have they got it? I think that's normal for a Glasgow-based club when we get some new signings in, especially wholesale new signings like this. Then you can fling the old cliche at it. Once we click, come on, we need to click quicker than this. You know what I mean? And I know I'm not wanting too much. I'm not expecting too much or going above reality here. Professional players can click quicker than this, I think. That's got to go in. We're very fortunate that we can discuss the fact that should have went in whilst progressing to the next round. Very fortunate. Had we not, I think my opinion on Danilo might be a wee bit worse than yours, Kyle.
That's it. And King Rec comes back in here, says he has God in the side, so we'll get there, which is hard to disagree with, seeing the amount of since Fashion Zakala's left, he's certainly picked up the mantle for the Bible quotes on his Twitter. If it helps him, then long may it continue. Ross, again, I hate to stay in the first half for too long, but I think there's only one last thing I'll talk about in terms of that first half in positives for Rangers, and that was Jack Butland. There was a huge save around 15 minutes, and he had another couple of good saves throughout the game. Okay, I think Rangers over the piece deserved to win the tie. I think we created the better chances, but Jack Butland was huge last night when he was called upon.
Yeah, an unbelievable save, to be honest with you. Again, comes from a really, really poor bit of defending from Rangers. Goldson's completely sucked into the ball. And one of the things you don't want to do as a centre-back is get pulled out like that and leave the space. The midfielder does really well to run into it, gets away from Tavernier, which I think we've seen a few times this season from plenty of players. And Jack Butland does so well. I mean, he's down early. He gets a really strong hand as well. He's got to react pretty quick. Really, really impressed by Jack Butland again last night. He was definitely not part of the defence that I was talking about earlier in terms of being shaky. Jack Butland's the opposite. I have a lot of confidence in Jack Butland. I have confidence he's going to make the saves when required. And I have a lot of confidence when he's got the ball at his feet. You know, he doesn't look someone that is particularly fazed by it. You know, sometimes his passes may be a wee bit wayward, but I don't have that same sense of kind of panic that I've had the last couple of years when it comes to the goalkeeper playing. So, yeah, I've been really impressed by him. Kyle, he's probably the signing of the summer so far because he came in and just done what he's supposed to do, really. He's just came in, really, you know, shored up that goalkeeping position, which we've been looking for a long time. So, can't be understated how big a save that was, you know, and I think we all felt the same thing last night. That's McGregor-esque. That is what Alan McGregor's done for us all over the years when we've been under pressure in Europe. He's pulled out a save that you sit back at the end of the game and go, that's absolutely remarkable how he's done that. And that was one of them last night. Probably don't want to compare Jack Butland to Alan McGregor for the rest of time. He should be his own player, but it was one of those moments last night where you really felt that's huge. And that gives the support a lot of confidence in him, because there will be an element of the sport that thinks, can we ever find a goalkeeper like that again that pulled off those remarkable saves like Alan McGregor did? And Jack Butland's pulled off one of them last night. So let's hope it continues. And he's had a really, really good start to his Rangers career.
Yeah, agreed. RFC72 here says Jack Butland proved a lot of doubters wrong last night, including me. And do you know what? I'm in the exact same camp as that, because I was a bit unsure with Jack Butland and some of the glimpses that we'd seen him in. And King Rec again here says that one-handed save was a peach. It really, really was. But Andy, I'm going to stick with you and talk about Butland just a wee bit more, because it's something I didn't actually think he had it in his game, but I really loved watching him absolutely giving pelters to that back four at times. He's not afraid to give stick to Tav. He's not afraid to give stick to Goldson or Suter. Maybe not so much Barisic. I didn't actually see him going too crazy at Barisic, but it's really positive from a Rangers perspective to see a keeper marshalling his defence like that.
Of course it is. I was on the same as you, Kyle. I wondered how he got on up here, you know, and he actually said it himself, one of his first interviews prior to the season starting. He's got massive gloves to fill when you think of the Rangers goalkeepers of the past, and he's right. He's certainly going the right way about it. And to see him, as you say, marshalling the defence and giving his opinion, giving them a rollicking, really is what you want, you know. Yeah. What I liked as well, I think it might have been Kilmarnock, or was it Ibrox last week, he's off his line quick. I noticed that it was in the first half of the first game, I think it may have been, or was it even pre-season? He was out at the 18-yard line collecting a ball instantly. Yeah. It's as if he's read the minds of every Rangers fan, saying, we want a goalkeeper to come off their line, command their box. He seems to be doing it. I can't talk highly enough of him. He probably is. Thus far, Ross has hit the nail in the head. The signing of the summer, so far, okay, we're only 3 or 4 games deep. Fine, I understand that. But when you see what he's done, last night included, it's absolutely fantastic. The goal that we did concede last night, absolutely nothing to do with him. And I've got every confidence in him. I really, really have. Last year, I can't remember who it was. Somebody in the pod asked me, would I be happy to go with McCrory? Such was the way McCrory finished the season. Probably, yes. I think I said yes. I would have been, after seeing what this boy can do the first few games. Delighted with him, absolutely delighted. And it's great to see him out there commanding, shouting. You mentioned Barisic. I don't think he had much to say to Barisic last night, to be brutally honest with you. The back four were poor. Barisic wasn't the main one at fault for that at all. And I'm sure there will be times in the next 38 games that Ibrox are away from home where he will give his opinion to Borna Barisic, as will we all. But no, it's very refreshing to see. Shot stopper, off his line, loud. Perfect.
Yeah, I said it was just weird, as I said, because I'm so used to just seeing McGregor. I was convinced, like, in his last couple of years at Rangers, that he was just shouting at Barisic just for the sake of it sometimes. And there just it was nothing. But there's a few interesting comments coming in here. Paul McGarrigle says McGregor would have been proud of Butland's save last night. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And there's a really interesting comment from Blue Nose John, the Frankfurt loyal. Hello in Germany. But he says Butland is new captain material. That's very, very interesting. I think I put a tweet out a couple of days saying that I could see John Suter, if he stays fit, being a future Rangers captain. But yeah, I think okay, it's very early days, but yeah, there's potential for Butland there. Right, Ross, I'll come to the next sort of action point of the second half before we delve into what changed. But it was the goal that Rangers scored that came 5 minutes in, and I know our group chat, there was some comments about Tav, some comments about Barisic. As we just established, I actually thought he had an all right game, but how many times have we seen this in Europe? The ball out to Borna Barisic and fantastic cross. There's not a doubt in my mind that he is not seeking Tav out at the back post here when he takes time, composes himself. It's a fantastic ball, and despite Tav, I think, having a bit of a poor game last night, he's there again when it matters.
Yeah, I think with all the limitations you have with Borna Barisic at the moment in terms of, his physicality and things, one thing that can't be doubted is his technique with crossing a football. It's unbelievable, really. He's always relatively close to his target. Sometimes it doesn't make it. Maybe he drifts a bit wide. But last night's one of those ones where straight away, as soon as you put it in, it's likely to hit a target. It's not necessarily going to go in the back of the net, but you knew it was a good one. And we've seen that from Tavernier over the years, drifting in at the back post, ensuring that he's not marked, and he gets his head on it, and that is Tavernier. I think it perfectly sums up James Tavernier, to be honest with you. I thought he was woeful in the first half, like really, probably one of the worst performances I've seen from James Tavernier in the last few years. I think he's had a few, but that one was, he just couldn't get going at all. You could see it from his body language. He was actually getting frustrated with himself because he just couldn't get himself into the game. But I did think he came out in the second half and responded to it. I thought he was actually okay in the second half. He responded well. And to get that goal probably gave him all the confidence to go on. And yet we've seen that over the years from Tavernier. He scores crucial goals for us. There's always a debate around James Tavernier, whether he's a captain for Rangers, whether we should see someone else come in at right back. Dujon Sterling's the one at the moment where people are pushing to see it. He's always going to have criticisms, James Tavernier, and you can sit either side of the fence. But what can't be doubted is how crucial he can be in big moments for Rangers, and he's done that over the years. And I think he'll continue to do it until someone moves him out of that position. I just think I have a lot of time for James Tavernier. I know a lot of people don't, but I just think that goal last night just summed him up perfectly, and I really enjoyed it because I think it shows a bit of character to come back from that first half where you've had such a poor game up until that point, but you've came back and you've made that moment count. You've scored a really important goal for your club. So, yeah, I'm going to continue to really enjoy seeing a Borna cross to a Tavernier finish or a Tavernier cross to a Borna finish. As long as they can keep doing that, that's perfect. I think there is doubts about the fullbacks this season and the width and everything involved in that. But last night was a really good moment to enjoy. And we've seen that over the years, haven't we? And it looks like it's going to continue this season, hopefully.
Yeah, that's it. I just could not believe, as I said, that yet again in Europe it was Borna Barisic to Tav that they ended up getting us through to. How many times have they got £5 million goals for us? So there you go. It was a fantastic finish. Snaky Bear here says the old team saved the game again. I'm not sure if he's talking about you there, Andy, but in terms of coming in and saving this podcast. But what was your thoughts on especially Tav last night? There's loads of comments. Maybe chuck this in here as a wee aside, but there's loads of comments on people saying that everybody bar Tav should be captain since we talked about that since I brought the Butland comment up. I've had Suter, Raskin, Cantwell. I don't want to go too deep into it, but what's your thoughts on this conversation that's evolving in the comments so far?
It's so tough. It's such a tough one. I'm with Ross. I like him. I like him. The things he's done for Rangers is fantastic. You know, I mean, try to count back when Ross was speaking there. I was trying to count back the amount of back post goals we got in the run to Seville. I can't remember how many goals he scored. He was the top goal scorer. Okay, a couple of penalties in there, obviously. But the amount of times he popped up at the back post, semi-final included, you know, so I don't know. I don't go down this line, strip him with the captaincy. I don't understand what that's going to achieve. I don't get strip him with the captaincy, drop him. I don't get what that's going to achieve. I think it's quite clear to see he's lost a bit of pace. That's always going to happen. He's getting older. That's absolutely fine. And he didn't cover himself in glory last night, first half, more than the second. But to pop up with, as you said, Kyle, a £5 million goal, and it was the old guard. It was the old guard again. It was a Borna Barisic cross, Tavernier header. If he's going to put me through the ringer for 80 minutes every game, but pop up with goals when it matters, is it worth it? Yes. Because we've all said it before, I don't care how we play as long as we get the result. That only happens when you're not playing too well. When you're playing really well, you want to start seeing better football as well. Is Tav capable of that anymore? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Probably not to the extent he has been. He's never going to be as effective as he was 2-3 seasons ago. That's just normal. Interesting to see what he does with the back three and back four thing going forward. I think that's twice now he's brought Sterling on, went to a back three. People were discussing, yourselves included, about the width and playing too narrow. I totally agree, by the way. Does playing a back three and pushing Borna and Tav further up give you width? Gives you width, but not the width you're looking for, really, in my opinion. You're just looking for width from a right foot or a left foot cross then. That's not the width I'd be looking for anyway. So to answer your question, I don't know, Kyle. I really don't know where I drop on Tav. I certainly don't think stripping him of the captaincy or dropping him at this stage would benefit Rangers at all. There's big games coming up, starting Saturday afternoon, of course, and then Tuesday coming, more importantly, probably. You can't leave James Tavernier out of the team. You just can't. And if you were to go out and buy a right back at 12 million tomorrow, would he start above Tav? Probably not yet. He's so effective for Rangers. So don't strip him of the captaincy. Keep playing him. Yes, we'll all have a for goodness sake Tav in us every game. I'm quite sure, possibly more than one. But as it stands, as we speak right now, the night after he scores as the goal to get us to play PSV in the playoff, no, he stays where he is.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment, and I totally agree with what you said there. I think it would be harsh to do anything with the captaincy with Tav. But Ross, look, I'll come on to you in terms of the next wee point of the game, and it's really straightforward one. What was it that changed in that second half? Because we were like a very different team. We were more pressing, more attacking. We seemed to win more duels. We created more chances. What did Michael Beale tweak to make us so successful in that second half?
I think there was a couple of things. I think Servette ran out of steam a wee bit. I think they gave a lot to that first half because they felt they were in the ascendancy. They felt we were under a lot of pressure and they were potentially trying to take the tie away from us in that first half. And I think they put a lot into it and they just couldn't match that second half. I felt what we done when we came out was actually took our time, took an extra touch of the ball when we had possession and started to calm down and pass the ball around. There were certain moments in the first half where Servette were trying to press us really high and we played out really well. But we just didn't have that kind of cutting edge, that final ball in the final third. I think we started to get more of that last night. Did we score enough from it? No, obviously not. But I think we just started to retain possession a lot more. We were dealing with Servette in terms of pressing us, and that kind of tactic from them of being intense and going long and trying to produce turnovers just wasn't happening for them. I think Rangers just done really well to take the sting out of the game last night when Tavernier scored. Really started to frustrate Servette. You've seen that when the throw-ins weren't getting given for them or corners and things, you could see the real frustration from the Servette players to the referee. Mm-hmm. So I think they just managed the game better, to be honest with you. I didn't really think the substitutions last night made that much of an impact, if I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think Dessers and Lammers done that well when they came on. So I wasn't really looking at it and thinking, well, he's made significant changes here. He's brought these players on. I think he's just asked the team to respond in that second half and take their time with possession. I think that's something we have seen from this Rangers team so far. I think there's a few players in there, the new players especially, that are trying a wee bit too hard. They're trying to make an impression early. And listen, I understand it. You're just in a new club. There's a lot of pressure. 50,000 at Ibrox every week watching you. You want to stand out. You want to make an impression early. But I just think last night it was very much take your time in possession, take an extra touch of the ball, try and find your man. You had Raskin and Cantwell that were everywhere last night, that we had options in midfield. So, yeah, I think it was very much from Michael Beale at half-time. Just take your time. Servette are not going to have the same intensity in the second half. Let's get control of the game like we did at Ibrox. Let's take the sting out of the tie. And I think they've done that really well last night.
Yeah, agreed. Adamski152 steps in here. He says, agree with Ross. They backed up. Somebody agrees with you, Ross. There you go.
I can't believe it.
I know. That's a bung there that's been sent. They backed off a bit and we got a bit more control second half. Watching back, we were relatively untroubled after we scored until injury time, which, yeah, really hard to disagree what you've said there, Adamski. I also thought the positional sense of Cifuentes and Raskin, I felt they were maybe sat a wee bit wider that second half, just blocking the channels. And Andy, I want to get your thoughts on the two guys that I've just mentioned there. I mean, I think I'm all ready to say it. I'm already fully in love with Jose Cifuentes. I think he is going to be a fantastic football player for Rangers, and something we'll maybe come on to talk about later on. But I think that decision to bring Nico Raskin in 6 months earlier, rather than just sign him in a pre-contract, get him in a free, is really starting to pay dividends as well. But those two players were, and especially in that second half, were really, really good.
Yep. I said it at the time when we brought Raskin in, it was worth doing that early. If it benefits us this season, it looks to be as if it is. He's fantastic, isn't he? I can't help it. I can't be the only one either. Whenever you see him getting a tackle or winning or retaking the ball back, you think, still game, I'll retrieve that. And it happened countless times last night. It's just the way he is. He's a wee hardy bugger. It's what he is, you know. He's sometimes not even second favourite and he wins the ball. You know, he's fantastic. The energy on the engine on him is outstanding. It's outstanding. Really looking forward to seeing how he progresses with us and how long he stays with us if he keeps putting performances like that. And if he keeps doing that, especially if we get to the Champions League level and he's in the shop window every Tuesday or Wednesday night, he may not be here for long, such as his quality. Cifuentes, I'm very excited about. Kyle, we touched on it earlier on about his ball in for Danilo's howler, we'll call it. Really excited to see how he progresses as well. Looks okay so far. Didn't look overly fit, if you know what I mean. He kind of struggled after 60, 70 minutes last night. You see him go down with cramp, etc. That'll all come. It's a different pace in Scotland. He'll get used to that, I'm quite sure. His vision is fantastic. So no, very excited to see him. But you're all aboard the seafood train. I'm all aboard the Raskin train. I love the wee guy. Love him.
Aboard the Raskin train, I'm driving it as well, man. I love him.
Kyle, can I just jump in on Raskin there? In terms of Andy, I agree with everything that Andy said. This is just something worth floating out there, and I'm interested to see if people in the chat agree with it. See, playing where he was last night, that kind of number 8, and he's not playing as a base. I think you get so much more out of Raskin. I think that's where he needs to play now. Does that give us a problem in terms of domestic games? Because it looks like Beale wants to play him as that base. I understand why. I'm not criticising the decision, but I think you limit Nicholas Raskin if you play him as the number 6 in our team. I think he offers so much more. That last night, getting around the park, intercepting balls, really looking to drive forward at any opportunity. That's the player I want to see every single week. And I think the best performances we've seen from Raskin so far is in that role. So I think that's something that it might not be a priority this transfer window, but I think that is something that Rangers should look at. They should look at another number 6 to let him play one forward. Again, brings another conundrum. How do you fit in Cifuentes, Raskin, Cantwell on that same midfield, right? I get it. But just purely from his individual skill set, that is where he should be playing. I think he just gives us so much more there. And he really should be the first name in the team sheet if he's going to play in that role. So I'm just interested to see what you both think on that, because I think you play him as that base. I think you limit him, honestly. I think you just get so much more out of him if you play him one further forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there was lots of comments about Ryan Jack last night being anonymous and not doing anything, but I felt that was the sacrifice that he had to make to allow Raskin. I've done it. I've bloody done it. made me say it there, Ross. Raskin, Raskin and
What's his name? What's his name?
Raskin and Cifuentes. Like, as I said, for me, that's the thing. I love what it's been a long time since I've seen a player do that. Just win a ball and just go forward from the centre of the pitch. It's such a rare skill, and see if that final ball can just be tweaked. We've got a real player in the hands, and if he's so tenacious, that's the word I would use about him, winning the ball back. I think it was Paul McGarrigle put a comment, and you said something similar there, Andy. He's got that wee hard man mentality, and it's just that it's my ball. What are you doing with it? Type thing, and you can see why the Stanley Liège fans were calling him the Pitbull. So yeah, I think it's, take my hat off to Michael Beale in terms of getting that one in 6 months ago, because I think we'd have been frustrated if he was another one that was had recently come in. But look, the next talking point here I want to get on to, Andy, is and again, I don't want to be too negative about this podcast because we did get to the next stage of Champions League qualification, but again, got to mention it, 60 minutes, Lammers and Dessers came on for the aforementioned Danilo and Sima. I thought Lammers was terrible last night. I thought we got to see glimpses of Dessers as well. I thought it was real unfortunate just not to hit the post, but there was another chance in there, ball in the box. I think on the BBC they said that it was unlucky, but for me, he should have been getting that on target. What's your thoughts on these guys and just the strikers in general? Because there seems to be a lot of angst. I imagine that angst amongst the Rangers fans about our strike force.
Aye, there is. There's definitely some angst about the strikers. You're replacing Sakala, Morelos, Kent, Tillman, effectively with Dessers, Lammers, Danilo. I'm missing somebody. There's that many.
Yeah.
And they've not... We all wanted to see these boys hit the ground running. And when we say hit the ground running, we mean scoring 2, 3, 4 goals against Livingston, 2 against Kilmarnock, and wiping away Servette in the kind of the first round of the Champions League. It was never going to happen. When you wholesale change a team like that, there's going to be players that struggle, take a while to come up to pace. And I said it myself at the start of the podcast there, to click. That all said, you are expecting to see a wee bit more than perhaps we are. Now, I like Lammers. I really, really do. And I think it may be down to something as shallow as he reminds me of Jelic. He's got the big, long, lanky legs, and he seems to bring the ball in. Sometimes, okay, but they're for want of a better cliche, they're going to have to start scoring. They're going to have to start linking up and scoring and doing more than they currently are. Dessers last night has to get that at least on target. He was unlucky when he hit the post. I thought the keeper got a wee touch on it. The Lammers chance, it's kind of snapshot, wasn't it? It was never really going to hit the top corner, that one. But there's wholesale changes in the front line, which there has been, and you're asking probably 2, possibly 1 midfielder, new midfielder, to help them out. It's always going to be a kind of project, if you like. We don't have time for a project at Rangers. Yeah. These players will be enough to get past your average teams in Scotland. I'm quite sure of it. Will it be enough for PSV? We'll see. We'll discuss that. I'd like to see them doing more. I've seen some comments on Twitter last night about Dessers, and I don't think they're wholly fair, saying that he looks like he's running through quicksand, etc., etc., etc. I don't believe that. Mm-hmm. He's obviously a quality player. He's yet to find it for Rangers. I think he will. Is that my heart ruling my head? Possibly. But we have to give him a wee bit more time and see. And I think we'll get onto this as well, I'm sure. The Morton game coming up on Saturday afternoon may just be the time where you go all guns blazing, the full starting 11, and get a bit of confidence there, because strikers need confidence. They need confidence, and they only get that by hitting the back of the net. These are all cliches. Absolute cliches here, but it's true. It doesn't, because the cliche doesn't mean it's untrue. Yeah. And I think that will be the case come Saturday afternoon. I hope Lammers sorts it out a wee bit, because right now he's not doing much for me, but I do like him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were getting caught up in a bit of hysteria last night. For me, like, he's been pretty good every other game that he's played. I don't know what the hell was going on. I don't know if it was coming off the bench, but he couldn't do anything. Like, there was a comment in there that his first touch, every touch that he had was so bad, he just could not control anything. But listen, we all get those days at our work where just nothing happens. Scott05 with a really interesting comment. He says, you can see Dessers is clever with his turns and touches, will improve when up to match fitness. Totally agree. As I said, I think it's and Kendall Matthews here, fellow podder, says end of September before we will be at our best, which is too sensible for this podcast, Kendall. But yeah, totally agree with you on that one. But I think people need to remember, when you're looking at Raskin and Cantwell, they were brought in 6 months ago, and it was about 8-10 games before we actually saw the best of them. So hopefully it's not another 5 games to go before we see that. But just a wee bit of patience, I think, is required on those players. One last new player that I'd like to talk about, Ross, before we get on to facing PSV and Morton, is Dujon Sterling. And I hate to open that can of worms back up again about that right back, but he's really, really impressed me so far. You were at that press conference way back when in pre-season where you saw him speaking, and I remember you messaging me saying, oh, listen, by the way, this guy's got something about him. And I think it was that line that's, I don't care what anybody else is here to do. Like, I do my defending first. And last night, it was another really good cameo appearance from him in a back three. Won everything as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I think the thing I took from that press conference that day was that he was coming in to play. It very much wasn't. He wasn't signing here to be the understudy to Tavernier. He was coming here to play. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to remove James Tavernier from the team, but it was very much, I'm playing. It doesn't matter, but I'm playing. So I liked the way he spoke that day. I think all the new signings that day spoke really well. Him and Jack Butland in particular were really good that day. This whole back three thing is quite interesting. I think I mentioned it on the post-match with Tommy after the Livingston game on Saturday, because we did change that back three again with Dujon Sterling, and he done really well that day as well. Wee bit different to last night. We had a lot of the ball still against Livingston, so Tavernier was kind of drifting inside and Dujon Sterling was providing the width. So slightly different to what we've seen last night. I thought he done really, really well last night, though, on that right-hand side. I think we spoke about this earlier. Wins a lot of aerial duels, which is something that's really important for someone playing in that role. And he just looks quite settled completely. I think you can tell that he's played at a pretty good level down south, and he's came through a really elite academy, Chelsea's academy. He just looks ready to step up. So, look, I've been really impressed with him. He's someone that I think is going to push his way into this team. Where that is, I'm not sure. Michael Beale spoke about it in several press conferences now about the back three, and that we should expect to see the back three at certain points. I'm still not sure when he's going to start with it. It could be a European game. You know, we'll maybe see it away from home, and if we make it to the group stage, you might, or even PSV, I suppose, away from home, you might see us go to a back three. I'm not sure it's something that's going to fit with us domestic games as of yet. But Dujon Sterling is certainly someone I'd like to see get an opportunity at this moment. I'm still not convinced he comes in ahead of James Tavernier, as Andy touched upon earlier. I think Tavernier has to play. But he's certainly got a profile that I really like. And, you know, remember, he got injured through pre-season, so he's well behind everyone else here. He's at least 2 or 3 weeks behind everyone else, but it doesn't look like that every time he comes on. So I'm really encouraged by him, Kyle, and I'm looking forward to seeing him a lot more.
Yeah, agreed. I'll be stunned if all three of us don't have him in our team lineup for the weekend, but we'll come to that later on. But there's a couple of comments in here. Pete Lawrence says Sterling looks solid. It will be a Smith-style tactic, I reckon. He'd have him at right back and Ben Davies reinvented at left back. That would be in solid defensive line. Yeah, very Walter Smith playing players out of position. And Luke Gibson here with a slightly more pessimistic view on it. He says Dujon Sterling, unfortunately, will never get the opportunity no matter what happens. Right, that's a large part of the pod. We've talked about the game, but rightly so, as we've progressed to the next stage of Champions League qualification into the final round of that. Obviously, everybody knows it's brilliant. Rangers have a guaranteed banked 5 million, and I think we will drop down into the Europa League, even in a worst case scenario with this. But Andy, it's PSV, they've been pretty, what will we say, braggadocious on the old social media in terms of being out there looking for revenge, looking, they seem right up for this tie. And obviously it's the return of Malik Tillman. What's your thoughts on this tie? And as Michael Beale said yesterday, there's nothing not to love about this game.
There's not. It's very intriguing, very, very intriguing. You have to remember how angry they were at losing the tie last year. They were massive favourites and they were furious that they lost it to us. They played well at Ibrox, I thought, first half especially. We rode it well. Tom Lawrence, ridiculously long free kick. It was a pouring wet night, if I remember correctly, through the goalkeeper's hands. Yeah. And then, as Ross touched on at the start of the podcast, Kolak's wonder goal was a fantastic move, fantastic goal. Listen, they're going to be massive favourites. Of course they are. We're discussing getting through a Servette tie. They've just hammered Sturmgrass 7-2, 7-3, whatever it was, over the course of 2 legs. You don't do that easily. It's as simple as that. They're going to be the massive favourites. Last year, I didn't feel quite as, I don't want to say down is the word, because it's probably not apprehensive, I suppose, maybe about the next tie. That's probably off the back of it. It was only 2 months after Seville. And we were used to going to Ibrox on a Thursday evening and just wiping people aside, and then watching it on the telly for the away legs, doing maybe not similar, but certainly being steadfast. I'm quite worried about the tie, to be honest with you. Interesting you mentioned there that if we go out to PSV Eindhoven, we drop to Europa League pot 1, I believe, with 5 million in our hip. So if you put my head in a vice right now and say, where do I think we'll end up? I think it will be Europa League. I think this may be a step too far for this team at the moment. Possibly too early for us. Now, I'm just after saying there that we should click early and blah, blah, blah. When it comes to playing PSV Eindhoven, you have to be really at your best, I think, to compete with us. I'm not saying we won't compete, and there is every chance we'll go out there and do them. As it stands at the moment, I just think we're going to fall a wee bit short at the moment with the form. Form's not great, pace isn't great, strikers not scoring. It doesn't bode well going into a 2-legged tie for Champions League qualifications, does it? Especially against PSV Eindhoven. Time will tell, and I'll go to Ibrox on Tuesday evening. Support us all day long. As it stands right now, I'm quite apprehensive.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary of where a lot of Rangers fans are at with it. As I said, it's so rare, especially you see a team on social media saying looking for revenge. But that's the type of stuff as a football player you must feed off of that, and that must drive you and motivate you to do well. Ross, how do you feel about the whole tie? And there's a wee comment here. Luke Gibson says, heard Sangari linked with Bayern, fingers crossed. I saw earlier on there was, I can't even remember the name of the guy that was linked to be his replacement, but I would love it if he was away by then, because he was a guy that really, I think he scored at Ibrox in that game, so he was a guy that really stood out. But what's your whole thoughts on this tie, and are you looking forward to it?
I'm certainly looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great game again. I think it'll be 2 great games. I think we'll raise our level because we need to be honest with you. And if we don't, we'll get absolutely battered. So I'd imagine the team will really raise their level for this one. PSV have a lot of very good players at the moment. I think Bakayoko in the wing, he's flying. I think he's linked with Everton. And Ibrahim Sangari last year was unbelievable in that first game at Ibrox. I mean, he strolled it. I think I spoke about this at the time. There was one point where he was being pressed and he just flicked it up and flicked it over someone's head. I can't remember who it was. It may have been Tom Lawrence. I think at that point, that's where you're like, oh, wow, he's a bit of a player. So, look, they're littered with good players. They're obviously playing well. I think they started the season well as well. And the Malik Tillman part of it just makes the whole thing even more interesting. I think this is why we all love football, because there's wee storylines involved and everything. Do you know what I mean? He's part of that team last year. He sets up the goal to put PSV out. 1 year later, he's playing for PSV and he's coming back to Ibrox to put us out. It's just very similar to Antonio Cholak with Malmo and Rangers and things like that. So there's all these storylines that makes the game really exciting. I think for the neutral, it'll be such a good game to watch. But look, I'm looking forward to it. I think we've heard this all before. Andy's talked about cliches tonight, and I very much agree with it. You need to beat good teams to get to the Champions League, right? We're not in the Champions League. The Champions route, as it says. It used to be in Scotland. If you won your league, you're in the Champions route, and you play against easier teams, really, because you're playing against champions of countries, right? And you would play against lower ranked countries in there. This route we're in is very, very tough. You're going to have to be at your best to get to the Champions League. That's what it's all about. So, look, I think we've got the squad to definitely cause PSV problems. I think the thing for me at the moment is we just don't look very good defensively. We look a bit shaky, especially last night. I think we looked that in both games against Servette, which worries me because if I'm honest, I could come on here and say, you know, Servette were such a great team and we done really well to get through that time. Servette were pretty poor, really. I didn't think they had a lot of quality. I've seen a lot better European teams come up against us in the past, so and not causes anywhere near as much problems as Servette did in the last 2 games. So I think that's the worry for me going into it. But look, I think Rangers have another game this weekend. It's another opportunity to get some of the new guys some more minutes, get them gelled together even more. And look, we just got to go into this tie. That's it. Go for it, you know, and try and cause a bit of damage at Ibrox to take over to the Netherlands, because I think it will be a very, very, very tough game over there.
Yeah, I thought you were about to break into an 8 Mile style rap there about being your last chance and not blowing it there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Games like this, I absolutely love. See when there's games when there's elements, you know, outside of the actual Champions League qualification, with Malik Tillman returning, which I mean, it's been well documented on this podcast. I loved Malik Tillman, thought he was a great player for us last season, but something that I saw in every single podcast I was on was he does not show up in the big games. If this isn't the definition of a big game, I don't know what is. Hopefully that'll be something that we as Rangers fans can get behind. It'll be interesting to see the reaction. And something that I absolutely did not think of before was Pete Lawrence chucked it in. He said might be Danilo and Desser's moment though, being ex-Feyenoord players, so there's a bit of extra motivation in there. I'm sure that Sam Lammers came up through the Feyenoord youth system, or was it PSV, Ross?
He was at PSV.
Oh, was he?
PSV?
So,
yeah.
But even at that, when surely if you're a football player, if a team said to you, you're not good enough to play for us, you've got that motivation to really stick it to them. So yeah, look, it's going to be a fantastic game, home and away. Ross, I'm going to stick with you in this next wee point here. It'd be remiss of me not to talk about it, but Rangers were linked with 20-year-old Ronnie Edwards, a player that's played in under-20s World Cup with England. West Ham and Bournemouth both been linked with him. I think West Ham had an £8 million bid rejected for him last year. Like I said, I'm not expecting you to know an awful lot about the player. I think he's only had 4 games for Peterborough or something like that. But it's just, this is the type of player that I was expecting us to be linked with a lot more under Beale's tenureship, somebody young, English from the Championship. What's your thoughts on the fact that we've been linked with a centre-half this young?
Well, I think we need a centre-half, so I think we're going to continue to be linked with any centre-halves until the window closes. You're at that point now where you're getting to the latter stages of the transfer window, so the options are not going to be as many as you had early on in the window, so it wouldn't surprise me if Rangers bring in a centre-back that maybe people aren't aware of, or you're not really sure of the link there and things like that. This one, for me, seems a wee bit unrealistic because of that figure you quoted last summer. You know, if you're turning down an 8 million bid, I understand it's a year on, his contract's 1 year less, but I think he still has 2 years left, so Peterborough are not going to sell him on the cheap. I can't see this one happening, I'll be honest with you. Now, what I will say is Rangers have surprised me this summer, because I was on this podcast and said, there's no way we'll sign Dessers and Danilo. It'll cost way too much. So look, I could be wrong, but it comes across to me as one that probably won't happen. I don't. In terms of the player himself, I like the profile. I don't know a lot about him. I'll be honest. I could come on here and pretend I've researched them all, but I haven't. I don't really know a lot about him. But in terms of that profile, I agree with what you said. I did expect more links like this because of Michael Beale, his experience in the Championship last year. Clearly has a good understanding of that league and that market. So, look, it doesn't surprise me with a link, but I don't think that's going to be one we go for, Kale, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a few comments coming in here. Luke Gibson says Edwards is very highly rated, will most likely go for a big fee in a few years, which is exactly the type of things you want to be hearing. As a Rangers supporter, RFC 72 said they got relegated, he's asked out, and supposedly Peterborough can't demand a big fee for him. So, listen, it'll be interesting to see. I see the Harry Suter link seem to have died with this one, but I'm sure at the next press conference somebody will ask him about this. And if he says there might be something in it, then we'll probably not link with him. If he says there's definitely nothing in it, then we'll probably see him through the doors at Ibrox in a couple of weeks. But Andy, look, I'll just come on to the sort of final talking point of the podcast with yourself, and that is we have a game against Morton in the Scottish League Cup at the weekend. Again, it's a 12:30 kickoff. Just don't make the same mistake I did and just assumed it was a 3 o'clock kickoff. Just make sure you get there for 12:30. But is this a cup that Beale's expected to win, or is that a stupid question because every Rangers manager is expected to win every single cup?
Aye, it's a stupid question.
Right, next question.
Possibly the most ridiculous question I've ever been asked on the podcast, Kyle.
Well,
Are Rangers expected to win the League Cup? No. Yes, I think it's important, Kyle. I think it's important to win, especially to give a good account of yourself, and it starts with Morton, obviously. What Morton does on Saturday, I think, Kyle, is it gives us the chance to get some confidence, if you like. Mm-hmm. I've seen things again on social media today talking about who could come in and whatnot, and we'll probably get onto our teams as it comes in. I would like to see Sterling have a 90 minutes right back to see how he gets on. The boy's here to play football. This could be his way in. The commenter who you put up on the screen not long ago there is probably correct. He's never going to be the Rangers starting right back at present. There may be a place, as Ross said, in the back three for him there if we go that way. Could even be as early as a week in Wednesday, 2 weeks tonight. So that maybe will happen. I'd like to see him. Would I drop Butland rest Butland for McCrory? Probably. I think he's done enough to warrant that. I'd like to see Dowell in the midfield for 90 minutes. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do. But we know what he can do. I'd like to see more of it. And I think it's quite important to start with the strongest front three we can. Now, I know we've all discussed here, Ross, mainly about PSV upcoming next Tuesday. And it's important to get into that game with a decent rest and no injuries, of course. But it's worth the risk, in my opinion. Get the big boys up there, get the goals in, get them firing, get them clicking. That said, will Morton make it easy? Probably not. There will be 2 banks of 5. But then it's like a training game, if you like, with all due respect to Morton. You've got to play through that, and that could create confidence as well. So it's an interesting one. And one I'm very looking forward to. I'm managing to go with my friend and his kids. So it's always good to see that. I always like seeing the early on League Cup games, especially when you're drawn at home and it's a Saturday afternoon. You can see all the first timers going, taking their kids for the first time. I think that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Nothing better than seeing that in the stands at Ibrox. And I'm looking forward to doing that on Saturday. But as the game stands, I'd like to see us start with the strongest 11 we can, albeit with McCrory for Butland, Sterling for Tavernier, and Dowell in that midfield. Dowell, Raskin. You'll need to come back to me on my team. Actually, I need to give that some more thought. But I'd like to see Dowell for 90 minutes. I'd like to see Dowell for just to see what he can do. As I say, we know what he can do. I'd like to see more of it. But yes, in answer to your question, I think it's important that Rangers win the League Cup.
Listen, I totally agree with you there. The thing about it is, I could see your face when that question would come out of my mouth, and then I was like, why am I asking that? Obviously, we should win in the League Cup. But yeah, we should 100%. And for what it's worth, this is a trophy that I fully expect Michael Beale to go out and win this season along with the league and the Scottish Cup. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that progresses. But Andy gave us a bit of a team there, Ross. So I'll give him some more time so he can come back to us and give us the rest of his team there. But what do you think the lineup will be against Morton at the weekend?
Yeah, so it's funny when Andy was going through his reply there, I was thinking, I think I'm going to get asked my team here, so I better start thinking about this. It's too early in the week for me to be thinking of a team to play Morton, Kale. But if I had to go off the top of my head, I agree a lot with what Andy's saying there, and I think you will see quite a few of the big players play, especially in the attacking line. But I do think it is an opportunity for Michael Beale to get some minutes and some legs at people that haven't really seen a lot. Dujon, Sterling, I think will play. John Lundstrom, I think will play. Yanis Hadji will play. these guys that have really not seen a lot in the last few weeks, I think will come in. I think if the level of opposition, with all due respect to Morton, I think it was slightly higher, you were maybe playing an SPFL side, you might see a stronger 11, but I think Michael Beale will take this as an opportunity to try and, you know, bleed some new players into this team. So I think I would go with McCrory in goals, Dujon Sterling right back, Balogun. I think Leon King will come in and get some minutes this game. I think Borna will start at left back because I'm not convinced Redvan will be ready to start the game. I think he'll come on in the second half. My midfield, I think, will be Lundstrom, Hadji and Dowell. Yep. And I think he'll go with Matondo, Dessers and Lammers as the three. I think Dessers and Lammers will come in for this one because they didn't start midweek at Servette. So that's my team as it stands, Kyle. Will that maybe change as the week goes? Probably. But that's my team right now. I think you'll see some rotation.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. I think we will see a few players that started last night being rotated out the squad, Cifuentes and stuff like that, for example. But Andy, I'll come on to you. This seems to be the discussion again that's in the comments, and it's whether or not. I mean, I'll level with you. When I was writing my team down, my front sort of 3-4, whatever you want to call it, I had Wright, Hadji, Matondo, but I put Zach Lovelace up front. That'll come as no surprise to anybody. But I think we'll certainly see him feature in the game, maybe not start, but people in the comments are saying that, so take Scott 05, for example, Dessers and Danilo should start to get some goal-scoring form and confidence, even 60-minute max. Do you think that's what we'll see? Do you think we'll see like a really strong lineup going out there rather than my Zach Lovelace, Wright, Matondo front three?
I do, actually. I really do. Obviously, it's the manager's job, this, but he's got to marry that with energy levels ready for Tuesday coming. But I think he will. I think he'll see this as an opportunity to go out there, get some minutes and legs, get some goals, hopefully, start hitting the net. And there's nothing brings confidence more than strikers hitting the net. So I think he will start with the big boys and then perhaps change it. Perhaps to Zach Lovelace. I don't see him starting. But my team's very, very similar to Ross's, although I would like to see Cifuentes get another game under his belt. A couple of reasons, really. Just he is the newest one, if you like. And I thought he toiled last night late on. With cramping, etc., etc. So I'd like to see him get another kind of run out from the start. But I think it will be a game for the big boys up front, get the goals, and then listen, see if you are 2, 3, 4 up with an hour gone. Michael Beale likes to do some stuff on the hour mark anyway, then change it up for all you want, you know. But I'd like to see the big boys get a start, yes. Also because it's my friend's son's first game and he'll want to see him as well.
That's it, exactly. And look, just before we go, I know it's a bit early. I know we've not had the Michael Beale press conference, but I think it'll be myself and Craig from Saturday giving you all the post-match reaction. So I'll get a couple of score predictions off you guys and everybody watching you, and you can let us know in the comments what your score predictions are, and I'll bring them up. So Ross, I'll start with you. What do you think the score will be against Morton at the weekend?
I'll go 3-0. Kyle, I think you'll see Dessers and Lammers get some goals behind them. But yeah, I'll go 3-0.
Yeah, and Andy, do you think similar to that?
Yeah, I was thinking 4 before even Ross said the 3. I was thinking 4 now, yep. I'd like to see that, obviously, get some goals, but I'd like to see perhaps Zach Lovelace come on, or if Hadji starts, get him a wee goal as well.
Yeah, it's not a podcast, Kyle, without you trying to get Zach Lovelace in this Rangers team.
Absolutely not.
We can't go through any podcast without you championing to see Zach Lovelace up front for Rangers.
My checklist is complete. I've mentioned being on a train with a player. I've mentioned Zach Lovelace. The only thing I've not mentioned is Doc Waller, but I've done it now, so that's the podcast complete.
You've also reminded all the Rangers fans watching that it's quite important to win the League Cup. That's an important aspect of being Rangers. That's always important.
That's it, exactly. But listen, a couple of the guys here. Paul McGarrigle says prediction 4-5-0. Robert Robertson says 3-0. Kendall Matthews says somebody will get a doing 6-0. So yeah, Scott 05 again, very optimistic, saying 6-0, and yeah, I'm going to say very similar to that. I think it'll be a high scoring game against Morton, hopefully, and bonus if we get Dessers, Lammers, Danilo, and all that stuff scoring, just to get I know they've all scored, but just to get the ball rolling a wee bit more. But listen, I just want to say thank you to my two fantastic guests. So thank you very much tonight, Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Kel. Enjoyed it. Good to be back on. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Pleasure having you. And Andy, it's been absolutely fantastic as always, being back on with you, big man.
Love it. Love a Wednesday night with you, Kyle. Always, anytime, pal.
That's it. But listen, thank you to everybody out there watching, listening. Remember, we're available on Apple, Spotify, podcasts. You like and subscribe if you haven't done already. I've seen a few new guys in the comments there, so always good to have you on. We'll be back bringing you post-match reaction from the gantry a bit earlier than normal, which will be nice. We might get up the road at a respectable time. But thanks as always, everybody, for tuning in and watching, and we will see you all again soon.